Hey guys, welcome back to phase 4. We are going to start getting into authentication and authorization. This is where we introduce that whole paradigm. We're going to start using bcrypt, which is a industry standard algorithm for hashing passwords, as well as JSON Web Tokens, which is also used to securely transmit information from the client to the server back and forth in that manner. And bcrypt and JSON and this authorization and authentication will all work together here. We're also going to build our routes for our registration and login and to get user information from the database. We have a set of authentication requirements here regarding emails, passwords, how bcrypt saves these things, how the JSON web tokens will work, right? So we've given it that structure. We want to protect our routes so that way we don't have people going into something like Postman, like we did in the previous videos, and be able to hit those routes without any sort of authentication or authorization. Now, those routes typically in this case will simply exist on the back end via Express. They aren't typically exposed in the front end routing system. They're used within the front end to hit the APIs to get information from those APIs, but we also want to, protect from any backdoor access. So we'll protect those routes. And then of course, we're going to update the README with some examples. And then once phase 4 and prompt 4 has been consumed by Codex and implemented, we'll be able to test some front end and back end logic here. So with that, let's get into it. I will point Codex to the prompt as we have in the other videos. And as usual, if anything pops up during this process, we'll stop, check it out, and we'll go over it. All right, it looks like Codex has finished up its process. It has created our authorization routes, the bcrypt password hashing process, as well as the creation of our JSON web tokens. Now, the first thing we're going to want to do is come into our .env, and we want to create a JWT underscore secret variable, and it can be any number of random characters here. You just want to, basically create your own secret key for the signature side of the JSON Web Token creation process. So what happens is the JSON Web Token is created using user data plus the signature to verify that nothing has been messed with along the wire when we're transferring this data from the client to the server and server back to the client. So go ahead and do that. What we do want to do is we want to run an npm run, and we'll check the name of that process. We want to reseed the database, so db setup is the job we want to run, and that's going to basically wipe the database and then recreate our tables because we want to recreate, or we want to initialize our authorization tables like the user table. We also need to seed it, so we'll run the seed job, and then we will start the backend server. So that looks good. Now we'll come down here to Postman, so you'll want to get that open. I've got these 3 routes set up. You can verify your routes by going to the backend. For me, it's in source, the routes, and then the auth routes. So we've got 2 post requests and a GET request. The 2 posts are to register the user and to log in the user, and the GET is to then get the user's information. It'll shove that into a JSON web token via this middleware right here and send it to the front end, and then we can use that on the front end to verify the user's authentication and authorization status. So we'll go back into Postman, and the first thing we want to do is register a user, right? Can't log in without a registration. So there's our JSON. We've got an email and a password under the body as JSON. Here is our route, our base URL plus the registration route, and we'll just hit send. And what we get back is good. That means we've created the user with this email in our created at time. And this is the JSON web token I was talking about. It's a combination of the user data plus that signature. And we can check this token out and verify what's in it by going to a JWT decoder. You can just find it on the internet. You can Google it, JWT decode, and the first one is usually a good one. And what we'll do is we'll just paste that token in here. So there's our information right there. That keeps popping up. There's our user email, And this is basically what comes back from the JSON Web Token that we would use in the front end to verify what user is accessing what resources there on the front end, right? So that's a cool little thing. I just wanted to show you that real quick. We get that information back with the registration. So we want to log in with this user and we can come over here. So we'll hit send and there we go. We've got our user logged in. And what we can do is now we want to copy this JSON Web Token here from the login and we go to get me. And what we'll do is we'll use that JSON Web Token to query the database for that user information. So we'll go to the authorization tab here and under auth type, we'll pick bearer token and then we'll paste that token in here and then you hit send. And because we have that authorization token as a bearer token in the headers, we get back our user information. So we can also test the protected routes that we have to verify what those routes are. We can come over here and I know category and transaction are protected routes and we can verify that here. Uh, Codex has so kindly put this up here. So all transaction routes are protected, all dashboard and budget routes are protected, which is great. And that really scopes it to user information once we make those queries, right? And now we don't see the middleware here like we do with our authorization route where authorization authenticate token is the function that runs to authenticate and verify the authenticity of that user. And what we can do is it probably sits at a higher level here in server where we have our budget categories, dashboards, and transaction routes. They all use that middleware, that authentication middleware. So what we can do is we can come back into Postman and we'll check out transactions and we'll try to get all transactions here without our bearer token in the headers. So we hit send and exactly what we should have gotten is this message. Authentic authorization token is required. So we can come back down to the login where we logged in and got our JSON web token. We can come back up to this endpoint and we'll go into authorization and we'll select bearer token and oh, it automatically populates that. That looks good. So we'll just resend that with that bearer token and we get no transactions, but at least we don't get an error. We don't get any transactions because there aren't any transactions associated with that user, it looks like. So go ahead and test your routes. Make sure the protected routes do error out when you don't supply a bearer token. And then when you do supply a bearer token, you get at least an empty array back as opposed to an error message. All right, guys, that's all I've got for phase 4 here. We've got authorization and authentication set up with hashing our passwords in bcrypt and using JSON web tokens. And we have tested those endpoints with Postman and verified that the middleware, authorization middleware is working, as well as the user data being scoped to the user via that transactions query that we just ran here at this endpoint. So in the next video, we are going to implement our front end. So we'll have a cool UI to start working with. See you in the next one.